Hey guys, let's make some cakes, period. So this is a super easy cake design that anybody can do and you can decorate this in so many ways. This is a nice foundation for a great cake decoration, so let's get into it. Starting with our cake that has already been crumb coated and chilled, I'm going to go ahead and ice my final layer of frosting onto my cake. So what I'm doing is using my turning board, my cake turning board to my advantage. So I'm turning the board as I'm holding the piping bag up against the cake and I'm squeezing the icing out, trying to make sure that I'm keeping it the same consistency all the way throughout. I'm going to do this all the way around the cake and even on the top portion of our cake. Once I get to the top of my cake, I'm going to work my way from the outside in using the turning board once again to my advantage, just squeezing my piping bag, squeezing the icing out onto the cake to make sure that it's going to be the same consistency throughout. This is giving me the advantage of making sure my cake is leveled using the icing bag instead of just placing the icing onto the cake with the spatula helps make sure that the cake is even. It helps make sure that the icing is the same consistency throughout. Now, all I have to do is smooth the icing out, and it kind of gives you a head start on making sure that the cake is even. So what I'm doing here is going to go ahead and smooth the icing out as much as I can so that we can get a nice, clean, and even layer of frosting. This will help us ensure that it's even throughout the very top and around the sides. Once I'm done with the top portion of my cake, I'm going to go ahead and smooth the icing out on the sides of my cake. Now, what I'm doing is pressing into the cake, slightly pressing into the cake, and I am pushing the icing over to my right. You can push it over to the left, whatever is more comfortable for you. This is comfortable for me, so I'm just pressing into the cake and smoothing the icing out by pushing the icing over. That's the simplest way I can explain it, but if you have any further questions about that, I would be more than happy to oblige. Just please leave your questions in the comment section and let me know if you guys are following me so far, and if you need me to answer anything, I am here. I will get to your question as soon as I can. So now that I have my icing all smoothed out, I'm going to continue to go around my cake with my offset spatula. And then once I get the icing pressed into the cake, as close to the cake as I can, I'm going to go ahead and use my cake scraper, which is also a bread scraper. But I like to use the metal cake scraper or metal bread scraper because it holds its heat, which really comes in handy for me when I'm needing to make sure that my cake is super smooth and even. But for this cake, we don't have to make sure it's super smooth because it's going to be the spatula effect cake. I'm holding my scraper up against my cake so that I can make sure that I smooth my edges out even more. Even though I smooth the edges out with my spatula, this is another way to make sure that your edges stay smooth and crisp. So I'm using the turning table to my advantage once again, and I'm basically holding my spatula up against my cake and I'm letting my turning board do most of the work at this point. Once I get my edges smoothed out as much as I would like them to be, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the top portion of my cake, making sure that the little icing on the edges, I'm pulling it in so that I can continue to let my cake look nice and smooth. That's what we're looking for, a nice, smooth texture of icing on your cake and a nice, smooth, even layer so that your cake can be as even and as leveled as it possibly can. Every time you scrape off a layer of frosting, make sure that you wipe that layer of frosting back into your frosting bowl. So as you can see, every time I scrape off a layer of frosting, you see my spatula go off of the camera. That's me taking that frosting and placing it back into the frosting bowl. And then Sometimes you may have the issue like I just had where I scraped off a little bit too much of the frosting and I made my cake look a little uneven, but that's really easy to fix just by adding a little bit of frosting right to that area and then smoothing it out again. This cake is not going to be super smooth or perfect because we're going to be doing the spatula effect on this cake. So we don't want to waste a lot of time smoothing this particular cake out because of the decorations. So to do the spatula effect, I am going to continue to use my turntable to my advantage. I'm going to place my spatula on my cake at an angle and allow my turning board to do most of the work, which makes this a really, really easy cake decoration to do for any type of occasion. So I'm holding my spatula on my cake, up against my cake, and I'm allowing my turning table to do most of the work by turning my turntable and just continue to hold the spatula. And that is going to be one of the spatula effects that I'll be showing you guys. Well, that I am showing you guys on today. And as you can see, it's already looking really, really nice just by giving low effort, very low effort, and this cake is coming out to look really nice. The end result of this cake, you can add any type of flowers to this cake. You can add any type of cake balls. You can add any type of fondant pieces if you like. Or you can just leave it bare like so and add a cake topper. At this point, you want to have a bit of warm water handy because we're going to go back over the cake where you see a little bit of the icing is just a little out of place. So you don't have to do too much. You don't have to do too much. We just want to make sure that it looks nice and smooth. So that's why I'm going back around the cake for some of the places where the icing doesn't look as smooth. And you want to have a bit of warm water, use your spatula and just go back over those areas. Simple as that. Lastly, we're going to continue to use our turntable to our advantage. And I'm going to do the same thing to the top of our cake. I'm starting on the outside and working my way in. And this is the spatula effect on the top portion of my cake. Super simple, super easy. If you follow these steps and these tips that I've given you today, you will be able to decorate your cake just like a professional, just like me. Super easy. And guys, please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to assist. You can also go back over your cake once again if you see any of the icing that's not smooth. Just make sure you dip your spatula into that warm water before you do. That will make your icing look nice and a little bit more smoother. And this is the final touch of the cake. That's it. A nice decorated cake. You can place a topper on this cake. You can add your decorations. I like to add flowers to my cake, maybe a few on the top and a few on the side with a topper, which would look super nice as well. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. If you haven't already and you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And as always, I will definitely catch you next time. See you in the next video. Here's another video that shows you how to do a crumb coat to get that perfect solid foundation for all of your cakes.